All right, good morning. Sorry about the mistake earlier. Welcome to Cafe and Pan Dulce. Today, May 1st, we are here at Full House. And let's welcome our great illustrious
host.
There you go, that host.
The illustrious host.
Christian Cano, by the way.
Christian Cano.
And I brought Bless Your Heart, so we'll see if Bless Your Heart comes into the conversation. Alexa, stop. Thank you. We're having technical difficulties today because it's the 1st of May. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. Today is May the 1st. Welcome to CafeYPanDulce. I'm Christian Cano. And we will start immediately by introducing the people because we have a full house today. This is probably the most we've had on the show. We had to actually pull up an extra chair, which is always wonderful. We'll start from our right because you're always right. And while we're doing that, if you'll please share the second live feeding. The first one was technical difficulty. We'll leave that on so you can see how great we were. All right. Introduce yourself, Barbara.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Bacon, and I'm a healthcare advocate here in Charlotte.
Good morning, Ruth Perez here, community advocate for the city.
Jeff Scott, man about town, representing all the world's lost causes in a single cup of coffee.
Wow.
Nice.
That's
Very
pretty
nicely
deep.
said. Jasenia Perez, I'm a business strategist and a CFO consultant.
I'm Tina Miles, and I'm with Miles Ahead Media, and I do a whole lot of stuff, but mostly media as well as television, radio, and a lot of different things for digital. So.
Bless your heart.
Well,
What do you want to tell him?
we are very happy to have you today.
We wish we had known that before we started, so we could raise the level of production values here.
I didn't want. That was my fault. I'm sorry. I didn't want to scare y'all. So.
And we wouldn't have told you before we
Perez.
started. Now listen, this is very professional.
You're
Please
fired.
make sure you're sitting right. Welcome. Welcome to our show.
Do you want to know where she comes from?
We will talk with you. Let's go to our next guest. Thank you.
My name is Tera. I'm on the board for Healthcare Justice today, and I am sporting Red for Ed for all my friends that are in Raleigh today, making a difference.
Yay!
Yay! I forgot to mention that.
As we have said before, we've been without a director for 3 weeks, or now 4 weeks now, and we can feel it. And so we want to welcome everyone, and I just want to let everyone thank you for coming. And let's please make sure we keep our remarks to short and sweet.
Right.
The issues that we're going to talk about are going to be the issues we're going to talk about. I just kind of wrote down, and we usually agree on a topic. And unfortunately, because of what happened last night, I felt maybe this was kind of timely to talk about. Obviously, we can only talk about this topic as much as we know about what occurred. The UNCC mass shooting that occurred yesterday.
Yes.
Also, we're going to go a second segment. We're going to briefly talk about NC09 update, and then we will talk about any elections in 2019, and of course our constitutional code of the week. So, while I share here, if anyone wants to, yes, I forgot. We want to salute to CafeYPanDulce. Welcome.
Yay.
Ka-ching.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
I think I'm getting a little bit better making coffee, so I appreciate the
Yeah.
observations. I realized I was ripping one off
It's
before.
still light, but it's okay.
That's right. Yeah, well, our Pandulce today is actually a combination of bagels and Mexican, and I believe, so please help yourself, ladies and gentlemen. There's blueberry bagels and cinnamon bagels. I'm not really sure what that Pandulce is.
Bagel, just a napkin.
So please help yourself. So, as many of you who may be watching us here in Charlotte live, or those who will be watching us later on YouTube or your favorite social media app, you may have heard that we had a mass shooting yesterday at the UNC Charlotte campus. I found out about it when we were returning back from the Wells Fargo tournament that's going on this week, which unfortunately, as these shootings do, this is probably going to overshadow the great things that are happening right now in Charlotte with the Wells Fargo tournament. But I think it's a very important conversation for us to have, because it seems like we've been having these conversations so much here in the United States. And if you had a button, and we're going to go around and let's try to keep it very briefly. If you had a button, what would that button be? We'll start with you,
Barbara.
Barbara. Your button is?
Mine is Medicare for all.
Okay. Ruth,
Mine is Moms Demand Action.
Okay.
Moms, we're going to be talking about that here in a second. If I had a button, it would be a Moms Demand Action or gun rights. I'm sorry, a gun sense voter. That would be my button.
My button is Stop Torture Now, and this is a very important topic. We won't want to go into it today because we've got a lot of other topics, but in the next few weeks we're going to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Torture Commission and their report that came out September of last year.
Okay. You also have your no bull BS button.
No bullshit, and
then your
my tri-curious
your tri-curious
porcupine. Yes,
porcupine.
which
Excellent.
is-
This is a libertarian
Yes.
thing.
Are you tri-curious about third parties? Get it?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting, but they're very popular. Pride.
They are very
so forth.
popular. Yeah.
And if you had a button, what would your button or what cause or issue would you be talking about?
I think I would stand up for the cause of caring for teenagers.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
think
good cause.
teenagers need a lot of support, a lot of care, a lot of time to talk and nurture
Mhm.
and guide them. And I think we throw them out to the wolves too quickly.
That's an important issue.
Mhm.
Thank you. And if you had a button,
It would probably be unity and prayer in Charlotte, because there's a lot of, division and a lot of people that are experiencing the fear that came with what happened with our city.
yes.
And if our city came together in unity and prayed, I just think a lot of things would change.
Thank you. Tara, I assume yours would be.
Well, actually, I have a new one. It says, "Don't quit your daydream."
Oh,
My friend
nice.
Maria, who graduated from the graphic design department from CPCC, made this, and I thought, how appropriate for politics, because that's what we do. We daydream and then we make it happen.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Awesome.
It's a nice slogan.
Well, thank you for those buttons, and we'll go around and you can tell us briefly your first of what you think, or I'm not sure even how to kind of talk about this topic without the reality of what happened, and it's so close to us. The UNCC. Anybody want to start with how they feel about what occurred yesterday?
Well, I didn't know it happened, and I was out, and I came home and started looking at my phone, and a couple of my friends that live in other cities said, "No, you're it." And I'm like, I didn't know what they meant, and I turned the TV on, and I'm like, oh my God, and I just sat down and watched it, and I'm like, just heartbreaking. It's just again and again and again, and nothing happens. It's just sickening.
I've been heartbroken since I started hearing the first views. When I started, actually I passed through there yesterday around 2:30, and I've seen all these kids getting happy because that was the last day.
It was the last
a lot
day.
of my friends' kids go there, and it was the last day. They were preparing for a concert, and it caught my attention because a police officer, undercover cop, made a stop on someone, and I called my husband and I said, listen, there's an Explorer colored gray. He just stopped someone just for no reason. And I noticed it was a cop because of his lights. But then as soon as I get home, I take my grandson for yogurt. I come back and I start seeing all this crazy thing going on. I've been heartbroken.
Yeah.
Now, that's my personal human heart. As a community advocate, how many more lives are we gonna end up losing until an action takes place? City of Charlotte, I can't believe within 72 hours we've lost 6 people. All around our city, something gotta be done. I don't know how we can, like you mentioned, unity, yes, it brings unity, but it also, prayer unity brings to action. We have to act. If we don't take a step in and do something about it, I'm very upset right now.
Yeah, I was surprised that it happened. I'm surprised. This happens all around the country, and
Yes.
it seems that we're concerned about it for a day, and then we turn toward what's going on in our life the next day, and then we forget about it, and then we see all the tweets about thoughts and prayers, but there's no action that actually happens after that. So I think it's an important conversation that we all have to have.
Yes.
Well, it's a reminder that we are a very violent country, and there's a lot of violent people around, which actually doesn't play into the taking away our guns discussion. Last night I was at the Republican primary, and they're all, strong Second Amendment advocates, as am I. I just think that our country has got very martial values. We're very warlike. We think that bullying is okay. We think bullying domestically is okay. We think bullying in the world is okay. And people use violent weaponry to achieve those goals. And if they don't have guns, they're going to use knives, trucks, chemicals, and things like that. So I would like to reduce the level of violence and make sure that people who perpetrate violent crimes are dealt with appropriately. But I don't want citizens to be unarmed and unprotected, because if things get out of hand, that's the last thing between you and your life. So
Thank you for keeping it on 30 seconds, by the way.
my pleasure. 30 seconds in.
That's right.
In another dimension.
I think it's a give and take situation here, because it depends on what point of view you're looking at from. There are many things we need to tackle, right? We need to tackle the mental health issue.
Yes.
We need to tackle the gun control, at what age, how available it is for certain people, right? How do we scrutinize who we give these items to, right? There's also the peer pressure, the social pressure that these individuals that already have low self-esteem, that have mental issues, are receiving day in, day out, right? There's also the visual effect. You turn on a TV, all you see is gun violence. Right. You're hearing the radio, and unfortunately, all you hear through these song messages is violence. Right? So this is the constant messaging that everybody, especially our young adults, are receiving, our kids are receiving constantly, that it's okay to resolve issues by violence, because this is what they're hearing day in, day out. Again, mental issues, low self-esteem, peer pressure, social pressure, the bullying that they go through from adults, from peers, from people in their family. You receive bullying from many different aspects. And it's, how do we treat our young people, right? To be able to help them go through these processes so they don't fall in this erroneous behavior that they can resolve by picking up a gun and ending somebody's life. And from a mom's perspective, I get very sad because I have to explain to my 8-year-old daughter almost every day why she needs to have a lockdown. And why do teachers need to take certain precautions, and why do teachers talk to them the way they do, which I'm very thankful that they do that, right? They communicate to the kids, they explain, but then they come home and say, why did they even do that? And you have to explain the violence environment that they are in and how they want to be kept safe. So there's a lot of issues here, and it angers me, it saddens me, but then it draws me to the fact that, getting angry, getting sad ain't going to resolve the issue.
Right.
Is actually taking action and addressing it that's going to resolve it.
Yeah, thank you.
I always felt that every war needed to be fought on our knees. As a nation and as a city and as a country, we have got, and as a community and as a home, we have got a lot of light of prayer fire. I've always felt that we can't do everything, but I can pray in the morning. I can, when I have my Bible study during the course of the week, I can say, hey ladies, let's put ourselves in agreement and pray about this. That's what I chose to do, to take action about what has happened. I'm not a legislator, I'm not involved in the community when it comes to other things, but I know that I am an intercessor and I am a prayer person. And the Bible talks about others ministry. We've got to pray for others. I mean, I'm always praying about my sons and my family, but to pray for others, pray for our schools, pray for Butler High School. We had the same thing happen there. Pray for those things that we can think of during the course of the day. be anxious for nothing, but let there be prayers and supplications all the time coming out of our hearts and out of our minds. So that's the action that I can take as an individual, and that's what I'm going to choose to do.
Thank you. Tara?
Sure. I want to give a shout out to Andrew Woods and Stephanie Hamrick for collecting phone chargers and taking them up to the survivors.
Okay.
Stephanie sat with them until the last one got picked up, I believe at 10:30.
Wow.
So shout out to them for that. And you know, I spent 10 years in and out of UNC Charlotte. I have degrees in anthropology, psychology, and a graduate certificate in teaching. And for something like this to happen on something that I feel like is home to me is kind of breathtaking.
Well, you know, one of the things that I think of whenever we're all talking about this, and you know, as our, believe it or not, y'all, I'm not the host. We have co-hosts, and I'm sorry that I end up doing all the talking, but
Limit yourself to 30
that's
seconds.
We're gonna shut him up. Don't worry.
That's right.
Don't worry.
One of the things that we want to do with this show not only was educate people, but also educate our Latinx community,
Yes.
specifically our English-speaking Latinos, which are traditionally 18 to 45, and other age groups as well. But one of the things that sometimes I think to myself is, because last night when this happened, my in-laws were here because they went to the golf tournament with us, and my mother-in-law wanted us to switch the TV. She says she's pretty much tired of watching these kind of things because it seems like it's on 5 hours. You know, it's like they put the camera in front of, how do you feel about this? And it becomes so overwhelming.
That's from working, well, I worked at NBC, sorry I had this.
Okay.
But that was their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like the
Every
conversation about
Yeah.
Butler, the conversation about the tornadoes or whatever, there's
Tragic.
we literally are told when we come to work,
Sure.
hey, this is our Super Bowl, we're gonna get so much attention.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's so, the
That's the sad part.
negativity of
Yes.
that is just, I hate
And
that.
it creates more conflict. I feel it. It creates more, especially when you mention, you know, mental illness and all this. Something that we are letting out of this, it's socioeconomic. We have to understand that is the biggest frustration in a lot of houses, especially in our teenagers, especially in our young kids, especially if, just imagine they're ready to graduate next week. We don't know what was going on in his mind. We don't know what he was going through, you know, and the easiest thing is just to, you know,
And that's why it's kind of hard.
Strike
That's
out.
why we can only really comment on how we feel about it,
How
not
we
actually
feel.
what occurred, because we don't know if this was a domestic
And
dispute. We don't know what if he had mental illness.
and
We
that's
don't know
the
if this
thing
was a
that the
he
news.
planned. We don't know if it was white nationalists. We don't know any of that, so we don't
I
even
said-
assume what.
I said
Yeah.
watching Eyewitness
Yeah.
News last night, expecting to hear how was the weather gonna be,
Yeah.
and you
All
know
you saw
any
was
other
this.
things, and everything that we're just talking, going back and forth, all night. The whole hour of Channel 64 was all focused.
And asking them, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
how do you
not
feel?
respecting,
Really?
Yeah.
not
And then
respecting
think
that
of the mother
area.
or the
Yeah.
father who had to
Yes.
watch that.
It's too
Sarah,
So one of the things that we can think about is how Medicare for All could impact this situation.
Yes.
For instance, had the gunman gotten treatment before all those victims could be saved, somebody needs to investigate to see if treatment would have helped him and saved those lives.
You're talking about mental
Illness.
health, because Medicare for those who
Medicare
have
for
not
All.
been following us, obviously I'm a proponent of Medicare for All. You're with Medicare for All. We're now members. Some of us are members. And part of the legislation that has been proposed, Senate bill, I forgot the number, and the House bill, it includes mental health as well. And so that's what you're referring to.
So yeah, absolutely. Was he without treatment because he couldn't afford it? And had he had it, would these victims still be alive? Now we also look at it on the back end. These victims are now going to have bills,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
yes.
and how the healthcare system is failing us.
Tara, that's interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that's a bit of a tenuous connection, right? Because he may also have pharmaceuticals in his stream. We know that one of the first things that happens is we look at their prescription background and what it is that they've been taking. You know, the shooters up in, I'm trying to remember the school where the guy who shot, does his mother teach at the school? I can't remember the shooting, but pharmaceutical companies want to get ahead of this, right? They want to make sure that they're not implicated because there is a fair amount of evidence that points to the fact that they are unstable and they've had mistreatment, perhaps based on the fact that they were identified as a teenager with having difficulties coping and they have been medicated. So I think that your argument cuts both ways, because it could be that the treatment by drugs for children who need to get through different forms of anxiety, and as a father of a teenager, I know this is a very important problem. We don't want to string our kids out and then not allow them to learn, in the natural course of events, how to cope.
Yeah.
My point's done. Go ahead.
Well, there's two ends of that spectrum too. From my point of view, is it could be the parents that realized that there was an issue with the child, or some adult that realized and encouraged the parents to bring the child to a psychologist or and get treatment, right, or therapist, and talk to their treatments. But talking about the Latino community now, there's a stigma behind it, right? Because when you talk about the Latino community, and I know this from hearing it, from living it, is if you take your child to a therapist or a psychologist, your child has issues. Oh my God, you have issues. Your family has issues. So now there's a stigma behind it, and so the parent kind of holds back. So there's both ends of the spectrum. It could be that they were misdiagnosed, or it could be that they never were treated, be it because of medical, financial, or cultural aspects to it.
Yes.
Before
we continue,
I'm gonna table something. That you want to make some comments.
Before we continue, I want to acknowledge all our viewers. Thank you for commenting. Margarita, thank you. You're always with us every single week. You need to come and sit at our table. And she said it's not okay. We have to make the best effort ever to prevent those violent events. She also mentioned, I totally agree with the lady who said that we need to tackle mental health, which is Yesenia. We as society are responsible for all changes. We need to act now. Hi, my madrina saying hi to Yesenia.
When my family said, let's change it. So luckily we've got Me TV, because we don't have cable, so we have like the digital television. So we switch it over to 18.3, and we're watching Gomer Pyle or something, so we can take our mind off of what was going on. There's a point, and we all get this way. It just seems the issues seemed like almost like healthcare did at a time before we came up with Medicare for All. It seems so overwhelming that tackling the problem seems so overwhelming. Gun violence and our violence in America seems overwhelming. Sometimes you just go, I don't want to deal with this issue. But then, as we were talking here, and this is one of the reason we wanted to have this show, is because we have different perspectives. Libertarians, Democrats, Republicans, independents, Democratic Libertarians. One of the ways that I think we can tackle this issue, and many issues, is we have to tackle it from the strengths that we all have, whether it's from prayer, whether it's from mental health, whether it's educating, or as some you mentioned about, especially with our Latinx community, you are correct. Mental illness is a taboo, and it's. I have told this story before, that my mom left 4 children when my youngest brother was 1 year old, because she suffered from postpartum depression. She disappeared for 6 years. At that time, we did not know, or they did not know, her family did not know that was. So we grew up with the crazy aunt. That's what we called her, and she was my mom, and she was in our family the crazy aunt. Well, it wasn't until, as we've all gotten older, that we realized what occurred during that time period. And I imagine there are many families that have the crazy aunt or the crazy uncle, and they just
we have several.
Some of them are crazy because of other reasons. But this was one of those issues. Had my mom had that assistance when she was younger to deal with what she was dealing with, had woulda, coulda, shoulda. But those are in our community.
And it's open communication.
Yes.
Right. I grew up in, here in America, in Massachusetts, and it was okay to talk about many different subjects. Then I moved to Puerto Rico, and I sit down and I remember there were certain subjects that you just don't touch. Don't touch it, right? And so mental health is one of them. And I believe also in prayer. I believe in trusting that there is an almighty God that can take control and liberate us from wherever we are at. But I also believe in action, because the Bible says that prayer without action is in vain, right? So if I don't take that step and I start talking about these subjects that are really going to impact us, change our lives. It's not only impact us, but it'll change our life. It'll change our culture. It's that big of a domino effect. We start speaking about these subjects that are so impactful across the United States, across the world, in our home, in our dining room, and then we start affecting our culture. How we address these issues, how we address these subjects. Then our kids are going to carry that with them, that it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to work them through, and work them through with your families, that then we can all find a solution to it. Then it grows. Then you impact not only your home, not only your culture, now you start impacting a community, right? And that's where we need to start walking towards too.
I started experiencing almost 3 years ago. This February it's been 3 years already, or 2 years, where we discovered my baby brother, he's already 30, having mental illness. And we didn't know anything about it until he decided to destroy and barricade my mother inside her apartment.
Wow.
The first time. The second time, it happened last year, almost a year ago, in July, and he destroyed it, like completely destroyed the whole apartment. He threw the refrigerator, he destroyed it. My mom had to be put out because, they couldn't take it anymore. And that really caught my attention, because you are right. Being Latina, we don't really talk about it. We see the issues on other people, but we think it's never gonna touch us. The beginning of the year, I have an 11-year-old. He had been so much involved in his video games, and he started talking to this young girl in school, and I guess he just wanted to call her attention, and he mentioned one word on that comment, on that group, through Snapchat. He said, "Oh, I just feel like suiciding myself because you don't pay attention to me." Let me tell you, by 9:45, I had police officers in my door.
Thank God.
And they said he didn't do nothing wrong, but I just want to make sure that he's okay. Believe me, I was at the school next day. Then I had a social worker. Now I have someone, a male figure, that can talk to him weekly at school. If we don't take an action and make sure that if there's things that he cannot share with us in our table, somebody has to do it. And I'm gonna trust that person, because I went and met with him and everything. And I gotta do something about it at that early age, so that way it won't drag him and wait until he's about 18 or 19 years old and start doing something funny.
And it's funny because you brought up the video games. That's something that is like a virus or a bacteria across the United States, or maybe across the world. But it reminded me of a case. I don't think it's even been 2 weeks, that through the social media, the cyber world, they figured out that these 2 kids, 6th graders, okay, not even 12-year-olds, 6th graders, they were plotting that on the last day of school, they were gonna come in with guns and just gun out the school.
Now, how do they get access to those guns? I know they get the idea from the video games.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Finish making
It's the accessibility maybe from an adult that's around them.
Well, that goes to your, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that goes to what you were talking about
Amendment 2.
Well, just a generally violent culture, but again, only adults should have guns, and 11-year-olds should not have access to this kind of stuff, and adults who have the training and expertise obviously know how to keep their guns isolated from their children.
And they do, but it's the misconnection between the education
Yeah.
that these kids are receiving through video games, through TV, through radio,
Right.
through
So-
streaming.
so-
And it also
so
has
I'm-
to do with the culture, because down in our countries, like in the Mexican style,
Yeah.
being a cowboy, it's normal, and kids get to see their parents, and they go
I know,
out
we-
to
so
do things.
culturally, we've been through several rounds
Yes.
of this. So I remember going to see the great cartoonist and animator Chuck Jones, who did a lot of the Bugs Bunny stuff. And before he spoke, this was in 1979. Before he spoke, he made it a point to the audience to say, "I'm not going to answer any questions about violence in my cartoons." So he had been getting grief on this for
wow.
all during the 70s and probably and starting in the late 60s. He was getting a lot of crap about this for a long time. He was just, his point was, look, this is just slapstick. This is funny, and kids are going to do what kids do. They're going to act out even if they don't see it. I mean, I'm putting words in his mouth. This isn't what Chuck Jones believes. This is what I think he probably believes. And I just think that we've been down this road many times before. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, said Johnny Cash.
Well,
So
go ahead.
So I just got a message from Stephanie. Please pass the word that if you know the people affected by the shooting, Project 70 Forward will sit down with them, help them figure out what's covered on their insurance, and show them how to find a therapist.
That is
That's
very
Project 704 Forward. 70 Forward, right?
No, it's
70 Forward.
Yeah,
70
70 forward.
forward.
Yeah, so it's the number 7, number 0, and then the word forward.
Correct.
And you can go to Facebook and look them up. You know, I know we don't really want to talk about Amendment 2 and that kind of stuff, because that's a whole completely different show. And I know you and I are, because we've debated, we are on completely opposite sides of that issue.
and I know you don't want to debate now because
Exactly.
I'm tough.
Well, that's true. But you know, one of the things that I think, and thank you for wearing the Moms Demand Action. As a member of Moms Demand Action, one of the things that they do, they are not against taking anyone's guns away. And I don't, and I can speak for myself. There are very few people that are for gun control that really want to, that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some that want to take anyone's guns away. All we want is safer education and background checks and some of those things that I think that are responsible people can require. One of the things that Moms Demand Action does is they have this program called SMART. It's called Be Smart. And it's for parents, it's for other individuals. And I have a card in front of you all, I don't know if you have one, but the acronym SMART is really for parents. Just as Tera, when you come over, and I'm sorry I did it last moment, I take away all the artificial scents in my house.
You do.
And just as if you had a child or if you go to somebody's house, you want to know, and I should have done, I apologize for you, I didn't put the dogs away. You want to make sure you put the dogs away, because there's many people who are allergic to dogs. There are many people who cannot be around dogs. There are many religions who, different perspective on house pets than I do. And so this is one of the things that before your child goes to a friend's house or whatever, call the parent just as you would about, do they have a pool or those safety things.
I've done that, yes.
Yes, and ask them the questions to be smart. Make sure that they secure all their guns in home and vehicles. Responsible, ask about the presence of unsecured guns in other homes. And one of the things they say when your child goes to someone else or to spend the night, ask. Just want to ask you if you have guns. Are they secure? That's something that, because there's a
Responsible parents should ask me.
Yes.
exactly, because a lot of gun deaths occur by accidental gun and
They're just
suicides.
showing them off, and
I get.
I
don't know.
actually don't know
Yeah.
the
Well,
figures.
just
I don't
think
know
about
that
what
either.
happened about 2 months ago about the young girl that was spending the night at her friend's best friend, and the guy just went and killed her dad and the best friend.
That's it.
So we know
Products.
we know that these are important tools, and they need to be managed like important tools. But
Correct.
to get just to I was at the Republican primary debate last night again, and there were 6 of them there, and the
What
term
is it?
the term gun grabber
Yeah.
does come up because it riles up the base. It gets people animated about those evil liberals wanting to steal our guns. Having said that, Stoney, the biggest Second Amendment advocate on the
Support, yeah.
he has
Tony Russian.
he has his own shooting range,
Yeah.
and he is very conscientious about these issues, about safety issues. So I give him a lot of credit as an advocate and a proponent of saying, yeah, we need to be, I don't know if he embraces this framework, but
Yeah.
he's very conscientious about
And I think
gun
most-
safety.
I think most of us who have family members that
Yeah,
have
yeah.
guns and stuff, the first thing they
I
tell
have a gun.
they're very when we go to Georgia and our family live in Gainesville and he's a collector and he has all these guns and he's very, before you even touch the gun, he tells you about it, always assume the gun is loaded and never, all those kind of things. And I've gone to the shooting range here and it's kind of, I admit, it's kind of fun to, the sport, that kind of thing. I don't own a gun, even though I was thinking about purchasing one, a secured firearm after the ice raids. I made a decision not to. But, everyone, as Tera had mentioned when she was on our show once, when she was out on the farm, she had a gun or something because of rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit, when I'm on Lake Wiley, if we're actually staying on the boat, there is a part of me that is concerned that some crazy person's going to come up to the boat, whatever. I want to be able to protect myself. And now that I don't have two big boxers, I have two little schnauzers. So this is a program that Moms Demand Action has, but we're going to go in. We've run out of time for this segment. Does anyone want to say anything else about this very important issue? We could do a whole
you could.
3 shows on this.
I just want to share this one thing.
Sure.
I own a gun, but the reason why I chose to own a gun was because last year around this time my house was broken into. And thank God they didn't steal anything, but they did steal my peace. And at that time I was just like, my mom was living with me and she, said the doors kicked in and we just kind of put us in a little bit of fear. They kind of flipped her mattress. I think they were looking for either gold or medication or money. We didn't have any of that. But they didn't steal anything. But at the same time, an officer did tell me that he was going to start doing his paperwork and he would stay around our property. And that just gave me a peace. Then I just went and got a gun.
Thank you for saying that, because I don't think what most people understand is our new sheriff, Sheriff McFadden, and actually, to his credit, Sheriff, the one before McFadden, Carmichael actually started this, where he would ask the sheriffs when they were doing their paperwork or whatever to be in the parking lot of houses of worship, so that way they could kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. They would be there protecting the place, but also do their paperwork. And police officers, I hope CMPD has some type of program like that. And the only reason I say that is because behind us is our neighborhood swim and tennis club. And I see I have to call them out, I see our police, I never see police around here, ever. Because we police differently on this side of town than we do on the other side of town.
As you can tell,
That's
the
a completely
dogs
different
police
topic.
here.
Yes. But they usually will sit back there, and I know it's because they're doing some paperwork, whatever, and that would be something that you would want them to be out, maybe at Harris Teeter or something like that, so that way their presence is, because unless they're on break, I don't know exactly how that works. But that was...
Georgia started doing that. A smaller town of Georgia started doing that because their crime was rising so bad. So they started having the police officers with the lights on just park on some certain neighborhoods where crime has elevated, and it called the people attention, and they got kind of scared, so they started doing interviews.
Well, don't let them do it to Cornelius, because they'll
I know, that's what they did. So what happened was the officer spoke out and said, I think it's a good way of controlling crime, because if they see somebody around here, especially at the time they try to break into neighborhoods and stuff, they'll prevent themselves from coming in. And I don't know what kind of programs Chief Putney is putting together. I don't know what he is. He has a lot of load on his back right now. But we, as a community, has to come up with something to help them smooth that. And we got to do something about it.
Ruth, thank you for saying that, because I think so often, and I know we're going to hear this over the next couple of days, especially because we're into a 2019 election cycle that started with city council and mayor. And one of the things that people automatically are going to be doing is blaming violence, the rise of violence on the people we have elected in office. And at the end of the day, we all have to, all of our communities, all of our neighborhoods have to start accepting some responsibility for coming up with the ad.
Yes.
We can't just elect people and go, okay, fix everything. We've got to, our communities,
Work
to y'all's
together.
point, houses of worship, my community, I need to see who's mowing our grass.
Oh, it's not you, the laborer?
It's next door. Those who watch us know I actually mow our grass. And when that lawnmower started, I was like, get off my lawn!
Tera wanted to put something.
So a great community leader that is doing Stop the Violence work right now is Charles Robinson. So I would encourage you. You can reach out to me on Facebook and I will connect you. But we will be having a another like gathering rally, and that's a great place to
Conversation.
start.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, everyone. We went over on that segment, and we started a little bit late, but let's just talk very, very briefly on NCO9 election update. The only update that we know of is early voting is on for the Republican primary.
Yeah,
that
there also, just to add, the NCO3 election was yesterday.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Right, yeah,
I
and
forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
my colleague Tim Harris won the Libertarian.
Oh, yay! That was
which
the
is good.
biography that you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that
the one
was-
that
that was
hasn't
the
shown up,
bio.
the one that I read, but
Right.
not here.
So-
So Tim has called into the show before. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit
Yes.
about his
Mhm.
background and the Jones Act and the effect of the Jones Act, particularly on the people who in Puerto Rico, and so Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Yes. Roll that R.
Puerto Rico.
So NCO3, who's a Republican? Is he Republican?
You know, I don't have those names in front of me
But they
right
had a
now.
Republican primary.
They had a Republican primary, a Democratic primary, a Libertarian primary, and there's a fourth candidate, constitutionalist.
So they would have 4 people on
Now,
their ballot.
That's right.
Okay.
But Team Harris won.
Team Harris,
Yeah.
Team Harris won, and we're looking forward to the general election. So in
Awesome.
NC9, early voting has started, and from the headlines, the slow voting.
Yeah,
It's very slow. Can't imagine why there wouldn't be a lot of enthusiasm for this crop of candidates.
You know, we talked
But,
about
Just
everyone-
Republicans have 10 candidates.
Well,
yeah.
but that's actually not bad because if all of them bring their base out,
That's right.
they're going. That's how Trump won. They
Well,
had 19 candidates.
last night, 6 of them were there,
Yeah.
and believe me, they weren't.
Was Matthew there?
They were he was there, but they weren't bringing out all of their bases.
No.
There was like
Okay.
Yeah.
there was a very limited base number of voters there, and most of them had
Matthew, I want to meet you in person.
And Matthew,
Dan Bishop.
He's got your sign in the front of
Yeah,
the yard.
your sign.
Oh yeah, get me in trouble.
No,
It's not an endorsement.
I need a sign. I
She
need
will
a
endorse
sign.
Okay.
And I can endorse you.
So
You already
anyway,
endorse him.
the debate was interesting. You can watch it on streaming on I think the MEC Geo. You can find it on the MEC GOP site if you want to watch it. It was an interesting format. It was very interactive. They had a minute. They came up in pairs and asked different questions. So I like the format. And I'll give a longer critique later for
Okay.
anybody who's interested.
Excellent, and I think they probably have maybe one more debate. So if you haven't had a chance to,
May 7th.
May 7th, there's one more. If you want to see the Republican candidates that are running for office, they're all very interesting. They all are very different, similar in many ways, but all very different. Anywho, so that is out there, and then the actual election is May the 14th.
That's right.
And then we will find out if someone gets more than 30%, they will be the nominee. If they don't, they will possibly go to a runoff, which would be in September, which would move your general election back into November. And as I said before,
Again.
and
It's
everyone,
running for 2 years.
and when hopefully we'll put together a snippet of everything that we've talked about this election. And I told you before, if y'all remember, I said people are so tired of this election
Yes.
that if you don't bring out your base, you're not going to be able to win. And because the Democratic candidate is not running as a Democrat, he's going to have a very difficult time to bring out a base when he's not messaging to those people. The 10 Republican candidates are messaging to their base, and they're going to come out.
Yeah.
If you don't message to me or my family, why do I want to come out and vote for you? And so that is what I think is going to happen. So I think it's going to be a lot different than people. And you've been messaging to yours, and I think you're obviously going to play a very important role. And Tim, Alan, who's
yeah.
the Green Party
Yeah,
candidate.
and so after we get through the primaries, then Alan and I will be working a little closer together,
Okay.
going out.
And then families can look at all the 4 candidates and so forth.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Vote 2019 election cycle that is here. We have some candidates that have announced. We do know that Lawana Mayfield is running for City Council at large now. We also know that Dimple Ajmer is running again, I believe. Is that correct? We know that Braxton Winston is running again. Am I missing? We don't know.
Jorge.
We have Jorge Milares.
Jorge, who's on our show with Unity, Charlotte Unity.
Yes, please excuse Jorge. He was supposed to be here today, and I'm sorry. He'll be here hopefully next Wednesday.
Yes, and so there's some. We have a really good. Ed Driggs is running again in District 7.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully.
Presumably Tark is running again.
Yeah, Tark.
You know the saddest part about this is we have such a large Latino community and we're not properly represented in the city council at large.
That is true.
There's a lot of people around this table that support Jorge. Jorge
Yeah.
has a
Oh,
lot
I
of
support him
Yeah,
100%.
But I think to her point
Yeah,
is that
I totally
there
agree.
should be
yeah.
another one.
and that's one of the
get
conversations
behind
that we have
Jorge.
all the time is trying to let our young people and whatever that running for office is for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, people get scared
Of
because
course it is
at the end, you just mentioned it earlier, everything that is going on right now, everything gets back and thrown to city officials, making it seem like it's their fault. So sometimes, you know, we want to make the change. We want to, you know, do things, but then at the same time, it's hard to go forward without enough support from the community.
It takes a special individual to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
Totally
It's such a
agree. And
thankless thing.
Yes.
And people
it
don't
is.
realize it until they go through it. I mean, their
And-
whole lives are like on
And also,
display.
keep in
Well,
mind,
here's where a true leadership comes into play, right? I've always said you're not into politics, you're into public service.
Thank you.
Okay? You cannot expect to sit in one of those chairs
and not do
and
anything.
not be a public servant.
Yes.
I'm so
Right.
glad you said that. Would you say that once again?
Yes, I do, because I truly believe in this.
Yes.
I believe that if you are called to be a leader and you have certain skills and you know how to block the nonsense and the noise that is out there, then you can be a service provider. Then you can be
And
a
that-
community
and
service
that was
provider.
too-
Saying no.
That was-
Just say no.
Yeah, that was to the conversation we had last week about being called to serve.
To serve.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that are called to serve. We talked about this last week. There are people who've been called to serve as our military. We thank you for the service. But there are also people that are called to serve in our country for different ways. We said school teachers,
Right.
people of faith, pastors, single moms, single parents, people who work in certain industries. Everyone serves in different ways. And quite honestly, I hope what happens after the Trump era is that we will no longer have this thinking in America that the best people to serve are people that are business owners, are millionaires or billionaires. Just because you're a millionaire or billionaire
We're not
or whatever
military,
doesn't
and the
necessarily-
Marines.
well, just because it doesn't make you, there's some, hopefully we've learned from Trump, which if you're a Trump supporter, I apologize, but that there are some people that I don't want them to lead, to be the leader of whatever it
community,
is.
yep.
But there
Because
are
they don't
people-
really represent you.
They don't. They
represent your values.
I think the
and
best
what
people,
you stand for.
that's why I'm so admiring of people who go into education, the patience it takes to be a professional educator. Someone like Alma Adams is such a great congressional
She sent a
congressperson.
letter right on the spot last
Yes.
night.
Last night.
And,
Yes.
and quite honestly, I would rather have people in office that hold mid-management positions because they know how to manage up,
They're in the
manage
train.
down,
Yep.
and manage sideways.
Yes.
If you're a CEO of a company, you're not used to people telling you no.
No.
So I don't want the president of Amazon or president of Starbucks because they're not used to they're used to telling people what to do instead of listening to what they have to say. So I don't want an officer in the military to be representing my family because they're used to barking orders and they're not used to listening to individuals. And so to me that's very, very important. And but I had those same in the hospitality business. I had those same standards when I brought on managers of a hotel. I wanted to make sure that they have the ability to manage sideways, up and down, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to negotiate with people.
Going back to having the Latino representation at large, Jorge's a door opener right now. I think he's gonna do his breakthrough, and that's gonna allow a lot of us to go through those pathways.
It is, yeah.
We have not had the support from the city as well. We talk about being a welcoming city, but a lot of opportunities are not given to our Latinos. Even though we are qualified for some of the stuff, I mean, yes, they can rub your back, and I know they can tell you, oh yes, I like you and all that. Bless your heart,
Bless your heart.
but
Have y'all met her? Bless your heart.
No, but they will
I
not
declare.
acknowledge. Yes. So
Bless
I'm
your heart.
hoping, and I'm gonna do
We welcome all you Mexicans
everything.
here in this city. As long as you don't speak Mexican around me.
We're gonna support Jorge as long as, I'm gonna push it forward as much as I can, and hopefully after him, a lot of others
Yeah.
Latinos come through.
But
And I have to say, there were a lot of other Latinos that are interested,
yes.
but there we go back. The lack of education and the lack of funding, right? Because we see, or I've seen, and this is a conversation I had last year with a person that's very important in our community, a mover in our community. And my conversation with her was, I come from no funds.
You
I
don't
come
need
from no
funds,
family.
and that's
I
what
come
a
from no
lot.
background.
See, that's the bad impression and the bad education that a lot of our Latinos have.
Okay, and that's where I was
Yeah.
getting to her with the conversation. I said, this is where a lot of people are coming
Get
from.
stuck on.
Have the education, have the expertise, want to be public service people, want to stand there and represent the Latino community, but this is what they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
And so how do we communicate that with our community, saying, you're going to have the support, we're going to find you the funds, and you can represent us, because that's what a leader is
Yeah.
for, right? They're there to advocate for what the community is
Yes.
put them there to do.
We'll be paying them
Which
to
is
go
why
up
we
there.
need the Latinx political caucus.
Yes.
So I'm just saying that, you know, I
I'm
mean,
just
one of
throwing it out there.
one of the great things that I admire from our African American Black brothers and sisters is what they have done in this city, and how they have learned, or how they have overcome what they have overcome, and to reach powers of a seat at the table. Because, and one of the things that I admire about many of them that I've had, Mark Jarrell was on our show and so forth, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're not going to have power. And no one's going to give you power. You've got to take that power. You've got to have a seat at the table.
That is
Yes.
correct.
And that is one of the things that we as a Latinx community have to understand. Until we get that seat at the table, people are going to continue to tell us, bless your heart,
Yep.
Yeah.
thank you for your Taco Tuesday that you brought to us and all that kind, unless we get a seat at the table, which is why we need to, and I agree, once we get someone in office, which you don't want anyone, but someone who's qualified, and we have many qualified individuals in our state, but for all positions, I think that will open doors, and that will hopefully inspire our younger individuals to say, hey, listen, this person could. That's why President Obama will always be my president. I never saw someone who looked like someone who looked at my family. And when I saw that person as president, I was like, my gosh, I can actually, and we said this before, and I've told this to many friends of ours in this neighborhood. Growing up, I was always told, you can be anything you want to be, you can be president, you can be president. I always knew I couldn't be president because didn't look like Jimmy
The
Carter.
stereotype president, right?
But when President Obama became president, and hopefully we'll get a women president up there, and different diversity in presidents, it lets people who dream say, I can actually be. So
Don't
what
put your daydream.
yeah, it was like 5 years ago when the richest man in the world, he was only there for a year on Forbes, was from Mexico City, the guy who owns the cellular companies from Mexico.
Carlos.
Yes, when he was the
Carlos.
richest man in the world, I was like, oh, I didn't even know who he is. I was like, oh, we actually could be. Well, because then he got overtaken again by
No.
the Microsoft guys or whatever.
He just has to work a little bit
Yeah.
harder.
So anyway, that was.
Glimmer of hope, yes.
But since we're in that subject,
Sure.
I do want to stress something out to the community that's watching us right now, and I'm hoping that it gets to our millennials, okay? So this is a message for our millennials. I have gone to city meetings, the zoning, the green, the sustainability, the energy efficient, and I'm sorry to say this, please don't take me the wrong way. Please don't take me the wrong way.
Okay.
Sometimes I am the only white Latina women, young, sitting in a room. And I'm serious. Like, they're all older than 60 years old, talking about what's going to happen in 2050. I love you guys all, but you might not be here in 2050.
Chances are
30 and 35-year-olds are going to be here in 2050. We need to take a stand.
Sure.
We need to be present when these decisions are taking place, because when we hit 50, 60 years old, it's gonna be too late.
Yeah.
Because the decisions were already made 20 years prior.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're-
Talking
you're-
about
you're-
that, next week we will have a guy, I'm not sure if it's Rachel or a guy, Alberto, will be here with us talking about our plan and our survey that the city needs to take advantage of, the plan for future Charlotte in 2040.
Yeah.
The next
Excellent.
20 years, what are we doing to change it?
And
that's
there's a
something-
great movement right
Yes.
now for reusable, sustainable energy.
Right.
There is an
Mhm.
couple of
Show
amazing
'em your
groups
straw.
that are advocating against.
Model your
Towards that.
straw right there.
Yes,
So
there you go.
we
Reusable,
are now
sustainable
using
energy.
reusable
Let me cover
straws.
mine.
You know, every little bit takes a. You know, when we were down in
Makes
Key
a
West
difference.
last year, they actually had signs that said
No straws?
they only give you the straw
Right.
if you asked for it. And
Paper
of course,
ones.
you don't realize. Yeah, it was paper ones, and I didn't realize. Well, I don't actually need a straw with a plastic cup because it's not been used or washed, unless it was tea or something like that. But here I've found myself now when we go out to dinner or something, if it's a glass, I'll say I don't need a straw, even though there's a little bit part of me that's afraid that.
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
but that's
you-
like the.
I definitely need a
You are
straw.
so courageous.
Yes. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna have to carry that
On
straw
that
with
note,
me.
on that.
That really touched
on
our
that
heart,
note,
isn't
why
it?
don't we go ahead and read the constitutional quote of the week for those
Who wants to volunteer?
We are on quote
18.
Amendment 18.
Amendment 18.
If everybody is ready, we will read Amendment.
It has 3 sections.
I can start with
18.
section
Amendment.
1.
No?
Yeah, there's section 1, section 2. It's page 28.
Okay,
Page
excellent.
28, yeah.
Who would like to read?
I can do section 1.
Okay.
After 1 year from the ratification of the Article of Manufacture, Sale, and Transportation of Intoxicating Liquor within the importation therefore into or the exportation therefore from the United States and all territory subject to the jurisdiction therefore for beverages purposes is hereby prohibited.
I bet you regret volunteering now.
A lot of
They-
theretofores and heretofores.
A lot of-
Yeah,
Yeah.
this needs to be translated to modern English.
Section 2?
Okay. The Congress and several states shall have concurrent power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
Okay.
Do you want to read this one?
Section
I'm
3.
like, sure don't.
Cano?
This article shall be inoperative unless it shall have been ratified as an amendment to the Constitution by legislators of the several states, as provided in the Constitution, within 7 years from the date of the submission hereof to the states by the Congress. All right.
Woo!
That just means the states had, they had to ratify it, right?
So this was-
this is basically prohibition. Okay?
Prohibition. Okay.
Okay. No more drinking, and it was overturned.
Yeah,
as we
it was
know,
overturned.
but it did last a
No
long
more
time,
ABCs?
and it created
That was-
it created the modern.
Underground speaking.
Yeah,
things,
and it created what
Especially in
we
Chicago.
what we now see as a huge crime wave.
But we wouldn't have had NASCAR.
Huge crime wave.
For those who know the history of NASCAR.
Oh,
Does
that's
anyone know
true.
the history of
That
NASCAR?
is true.
No.
Yes.
Well,
If you live in Charlotte, you must
know
know
the
the history of
history of
NASCAR.
NASCAR.
Apparently,
Oh my
that's
God,
how
I
they
got
started.
homework
Was
to
they
do now.
were
Escaping.
Escape.
It was alcohol. They were outrunning the cops. With
Yes, so they had faster cars.
That's
okay,
right.
interesting. I did not
Dukes
know.
of
I've been to the NASCAR museum. And if you live out in Concord area or around this, they have the Hendricks Museum, which is
Right.
really educational.
Yeah,
I
it's
was
awesome.
very
So everything you need to know about prohibition, and in particular Libertarians Party,
Sure.
the Libertarian Party's position on prohibition and drug wars, you can learn from learning about the history of prohibition and what was going on before, all the mania that people had, and what the consequences were afterwards, the rise in crime, rise in violent gangs, increase in gun technology. The country was full of gangsters.
Well, I've always felt
Kennedy
like
wouldn't have as much money either.
Yeah, we never would have gotten the Kennedys.
Yeah, exactly true. I mean,
Yeah.
Joe
Wow.
was.
I'm glad to know that all of my neighbors
Great
are cutting their
bootleg.
grass today.
Yes, I can hear them.
Get off my other lawn.
So
He's so worried about
I
that.
am. I'm like really stressed out. They're gonna
Because they
get on my
probably
side.
pass on your side.
Why don't you bring the chainsaw, weed whacker?
Shall we stay here to protect you? Or?
Yes. If we could all go out, just
Pray over protection of your territory.
And then we'll put the dogs out. Wait, what if they're not Mexicans though?
I want to. Those of you who watch our show probably don't get any of this inside humor, but those, as I tell people when we moved here to this neighborhood, I love cutting grass. It's very relaxing. Doing yard work is relaxing. I love it.
You want to go do it, Glenn?
I love doing mine. And I love doing it because I grew up having to cut mine and my neighbor's grass, and I hated doing it. But she made me a pie, and so
That's it. She didn't pay you.
no, she'd make me a pie. She was a little lady.
Lady.
Well, you do get kind of a dopamine rush from making small accomplishments around your house.
I enjoy it.
That's
And
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
So people ask me all the time why I care about Cano so much, and I'm like, you don't get it. He makes me bellow laugh.
It's not that. But I guess I look back. I'm kind of embarrassed at the fact that I do have those things that happen. But it is. Everyone has those things that happen to you in your life that you look back and you have two options. You can either be mad or you can just laugh and go.
Listen to it.
Yeah.
You can tell them your yard
So
story
I'll
experience.
tell you my I cut the front yard with my push mower so I can mulch it, and then I cut the backyard with the riding mower, and I was cutting the back to the riding mower, and people were the guys that cut the grass were waving at me. I think they thought I was a yard guy. Yes, and I think my neighbors thought I was the yard guy. But it was more important that all the guys that the long crews that cut the grass would go by and go, you know, like, support. Yeah, like, hey, how'd you get that account? So,
And there he was with his long shirt.
I wear my
His goggles.
On that note, I think it's appropriate for us to end this show. But I want to thank everyone for joining us, and please come back whenever you, and if we gotta move it to the CafeYPanDulce to the living room, we're welcome to do that. You know, part of this show, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this show was to educate people, to have conversations like this, that hopefully maybe other neighborhoods will start having. Inviting their neighbors to come and talking about issues that are important to the neighborhood, and hopefully as we all do it that we can start tackling some of these, because I do agree with what all of you have said that I'm a big history guy, and we in America, the United States, we don't seem to always remember our history, and we always repeat it. And it seems like if we could just study from history and study from what's happened, and especially the city of Charlotte is not any more unique than Chicago or LA. We just happen to be growing really fast, but there are things that maybe we can take from other cities that work in those cities, and we have the brain trust of so many people that have moved here that can bring their experiences from where they came from. Well,
I've been called that too many times, and now I think it's hilarious, but it really hurt my feelings the first time somebody called me that. But I wanted to say briefly that Janice sent to my niece, who is here as a U.S. citizen. She was born in Mexico. She taught herself English. She now is married to my nephew, and they have a little boy named Ben. And she sent them, gave them the directions to go to this podcast in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Well, now he wants to have a podcast.
Oh,
Awesome.
But he wants to do it for school children.
Awesome.
And so I know my nephew wasn't too thrilled about it, but he wants to talk about things. And I said, well, what about bullying, Ben? Does bullying happen in your school? Oh, yes, Aunt Barb. And I
that's a
said,
great
well,
idea.
and he's 6, but
Wow.
he's such a caring and he's such a smart little guy. And my nephew's like, who's going to pay for this? And I said, let's not worry about that.
Yeah.
Let's see if it continues. And he's still talking about it.
Is that here or in Chicago?
In Illinois.
In
Oh, oh, excellent. Well, you know, on that note, we're going to go around the table and
We're
tell
giving
us.
birth.
Yes, we hope that other
I love it.
people
Yes.
start. I mean, I know we've had some followers of ours that are starting their own projects and so forth, and I think that's wonderful. You know,
I have mine in Spanish every week.
Yeah. Yours is every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
In Spanish.
Yep.
And tell us where you're going to be at. We're going to go ahead and end the show now because we are reaching our 1 hour.
Yes,
we value your time. We did start a little late, but thank you for joining
Actually,
us.
1 hour already.
My family in Tampa. I'll be seeing you in 24 hours. So yes, I'm very excited about getting some more sun. Actually, I went fishing this weekend on Lake Wiley, and I got
You're
too
still
much sun.
white.
No, I got. Look at this. Look at that.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness!
I was
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
I didn't realize how I need sun.
I'll
like,
alert the media.
Yes.
Broken legs.
Weren't you at the lake? I saw some pictures of yours. You were at a lake.
No, I drove up to Asheville to go to the Torture Commission.
Oh, that's right.
That's
This
right.
weekend, yeah.
Sunday.
Well, we'll have to have a show about that. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to go behind the camera because once again we don't have a director. Hopefully we'll have a director in the next 2 weeks.
Hopefully.
And if we'll go around and tell us where you're going to be at next. And then
Actually, I just want to make sure and say happy Labor Day to all
Yes,
my
tell
Mexican
us.
people. Today, May 1st, Día del Trabajo. Felicidades to all of y'all.
Alexa, play
And
Pandora.
we have the Cinco de Mayo celebration this weekend. So don't forget to go to Aldersgate. Cinco de Mayo festival is free. It's from 12 to 6.
Oh, nice.
All right. Where are you going to be next? Or
Tonight, Sardis Presbyterian Church.
Sardis Presbyterian Church.
Medicare for all.
Medicare for all. That I'll be cutting my grass, so I won't be there.
You won't be there.
Where will you be next?
I will be next at the festival this weekend.
Okay.
And don't forget, if you can tune in at Espacio Latino every Tuesday from 12 to 1. Y'all are welcome.
Excellent.
Thursday, I was going to be at the Charlotte Torture Commission meeting. They were going to do a similar meeting, but I think it's been canceled, unfortunately. So I'm open.
You're open.
I'm a little everywhere, but I'm open.
Okay.
I have a Bible study in my home this evening. I'm hoping that people may want to come for prayer about what's going on in our city. So my address is 11530 Wilshire Common Circle. And
Well, if you will post that on our page,
Yes.
or to contact you, they can instant message you or something. Because
Awesome.
I do have one more.
Go ahead.
Y'all, there's going to be a Dan McCready sighting
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, May 2nd, at Sycamore Brewing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there with Dr. Bonfalt, the neurosurgeon.
You think he'll be there though? I don't want to waste my time.
He was
Well-
there last time?
Well, we didn't talk about this, but there was actually scheduled a protest in front of Dan McCready because of what he said about Representative. There was a protest scheduled. That's been canceled because of the shooting. Generally, what happens whenever you have such a big event, you want to cancel all campaigning. It'd be interesting if he still holds the event tomorrow, because you really should cancel
Oh my
all
God, tomorrow's Thursday.
Yes.
I'll be at the Micah Gala. Our
Oh.
friend Manolo is
Oh, yes.
getting
Okay.
awarded, the Micah Award.
Oh, cool.
I will be at the Micah Award at the, I can't remember right now, the Blue Medal.
Okay.
So we'll try to keep our event page
Yes.
updated
Yes.
so that people
Excellent.
might be aware
Yes.
of these items.
All right. I guess that's it, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.